What is up, guys? It's your boy Kittens, or Nelson now, coming back to you guys with a deck tech. And this is for my Artifact Tron Combo. And I just want to generally talk about it. The online version is different from the paper version. And right now I have two proxies for Explore, but the only reason I have those proxies is because I do have those. And so right now what I'm doing is going through my collection, trying to like sell off a bunch of stuff and just kind of getting ready to go back out to card shops because, I don't know, for me, I've always played so many different card games that sometimes it's hard for me to settle on one. You know, this is like Magic binder to sell. This is like old Pokemon stuff that my brother had before he stopped playing, and he just gave this to me. And then this is like, you know, Magic stuff that I've had for a while, you know, that I've literally like I've just had like random $1 and under cards and stuff and just trades and things like that, you know. So I've just always been mildly disorganized with my cards and literally, you know, with my binders and everything. It's like an old Yu-Gi-Oh binder for collection for myself. And so right now what I'm doing is just sorting through, and really, you know, for me, getting ready to sell my stuff is building a deck so I can actually go and play. So Artifact Tron Combo. All right, boys. So, you know, in paper, this version is made to be just a very fun turn 3, turn 4 combo that is not super degenerate. Like, it's not meant to, you know, just win on the spot. It's really just meant to turn 3, turn 4. You're going to try to play multiple Metalwork Colossuses, or you try to play a Hangerback Walker. And you can, let's say, use the Hangerback Walker, you know, when you have like 7 mana for this, because it needs to be a 7 converted mana cost. So you could play a Hangerback Walker, use Sanctum of Ugin to sack, and then go and find a Metalwork Colossus, turn 3, turn 4. And the idea is really just to plop out a big creature that's hard to deal with, and then you just kind of go back and forth with your opponent if they have removal, if they don't, and you just play the game, try to have some fun. And that's kind of the idea of it. I don't know, like I wanted to play Tron, but it was more so that I wanted to have Artifact fun. And the main idea that came and spawned this deck was, how do you even say this? Quiripur Orrery, you know? So this, when I saw this, you know, this is a card I really loved for Commander, and, you know, I just wanted to make a deck out of it. Literally just playing extra lands, and then when you have no cards, drawing 3 cards at the beginning is really, you know, this is kind of like, you know, it's a dual-sided card. It affects both you and your opponent. But if you're dropping extra Tron lands, you know, you're literally just, it doesn't even matter if your opponent's doing extra lands, drawing extra cards. Because if you're just going off and dropping out 10/10s, it's just, you're going to win, usually, right? Now, the other side of it is just, let's say, basic Tron stuff. You know, you have the Sylvan Scrying, Expedition maps to find lands. And then I have, you know, Chromatic Sphere, Terrarion. And I did skip out on buying the Chromatic Stars because they're a little expensive for me. And then I use 2 Prophetic Prisms just as like placeholders right now. And I have the Lotus Blooms to help kind of power through the deck. And then just fun stuff. The full art lands from Unstable, 6 of them. And then I use 3 Sanctum of Ugins right now. The cards that I want to put in to improve the deck for consistency is I want to have 3 more copies of Ancient Stirrings. So, you know, I'm just, you know, I have that on the side, just some extra cases just ready. The reason I didn't get these originally when I was building the deck, and I only got these online instead of in paper, is because originally they were like $5, $10, $15 when I was looking at them, but they're like $1 now. So I was like, heck yeah, I'll definitely rebuild this one. And I actually, you know, I put away another deck instead. I put away Dimir Mill. Yeah, like just random stuff. Yeah, just some Dimir Mill stuff, just for trade and sale, all that jazz. Now, this side of it, how this deck kind of functions before we look at the sideboard and the other things that I do, this deck is really made to just power out these big guys on turn 3 to turn 4. I mean, it's really just, you want to get those, power those out. I mean, there's some key cards where you're going to want this to draw extra cards, play extra lands. This card will allow you to just dump your hand, and then you pass to your opponent and then draw more cards on your turn. This stuff is just, you know, quick searching, you know, land searching throughout the deck. These lands will help you find other big creatures. So you play a big creature, get another big creature, you know, keep going. The major downfall for this deck and why it's built this way is what people kind of immediately side. You know, if people realize that you're playing Tron, the thing that they immediately sideboard against you is like strip mines, you know, Ghost Quarter, just any kind of land hate just to get your Tron not online. And Oh yeah, the other side of it is the 2 proxies for Explore. So we are trying to play 4 Explore. I do need to find these other 2, but life. So, so the idea of the deck is that you're going to basically power these out regardless of the sideboarding. So your opponent will likely sideboard Land Hate. And if you're able to get an Explore turn 2, or you're able to get a Lotus Bloom early game, or you're able to get one of these out, by turn 3, turn 4, to play extra lands, you should be able to just power out the Colossus and the Hangerback Walkers anyway. So even if your opponent strip mines you and you don't get, the stuff online, you should be able to just ramp into it fairly early. At the very least, you should be able to ramp into a decent Hangerback Walker and still be in the game, still be playing. So that's kind of the main focus of this deck, is just to play and kind of sideboard, have some fun, but also be resistant to sideboarding just innately. Now, the other thing is kind of how the deck, the worst thing, I guess, for the deck, the worst matchup is creature heavy decks and like Gruul stuff and, like burn decks like bolts, because there are times where, this deck only goes off really turn 3 to turn 4. I mean, if you're lucky, you're going to go off turn 3. So if you're facing a burn deck, you could be dead by turn 3. You could have like the nuts hand where you're like, I'm totally going to go off and do my combo. And then your opponent just goes like bolt attack with these 2 guys, you're dead. And that's sometimes that's just how it goes. So the sideboard, and this is actually the same thing that I really did for paper and for online, was just to, have a sideboard. This is supposed to be in the deck right now, but just have a sideboard to actually change out to make the deck more degenerate. And there's a couple artifact cards that just make this deck very degenerate and fun. And one of the fun things that I found with this deck is that it works as just a basic filler. I mean, you can realistically take out these 8 artifacts and put any 8 artifacts in that you want. I mean, it literally, any 8 cards that you want to be your prize cards. I mean, you could put like Worm Coil Engines, you could put Karn Liberated, you could do the Ugins. I mean, I could literally just put 4 Ugins in or 4 Karn Liberateds, and the deck would be like that much more powerful because the main cards you'd play would be more, stronger, all that jazz. So what I choose to do is kind of, versus more degenerate decks, what I'll try to do is against, let's say, for example, burn decks, is I'll try to go for the Ether Flux Reservoirs. And there are points where when you're using Ether Flux Reservoir with the Querent Ores, you'll be drawing extra. You basically try to play out your hand, draw a bunch of extra cards, play everything out as well as you can, end with 0 cards so that you can draw, 3 more on your next turn. And you should, in most scenarios, be getting, 10 to 12 life per turn. And, oftentimes with the Gonti's Ether Heart, if you guys don't know what this is a extra turn spell for artifacts. Blankety blank, pay 8. Exile Gonti's Ether Heart and take an extra turn after this one. So one of the kind of original ideas of this deck, and the more degenerate side, is using Gonti's Ether Hearts and using Mindslaver, and also using Ether Flux Reservoir. So at either one of those cards, like against very difficult decks, you could side in, 4 Gonti's Ether Hearts, and then you try to basically go for taking extra turns. And you would go like Ether Heart, 2 Reservoirs, and then something that adds more draw power. And then this is supposed to be in the deck normally. It's just, I don't have it. So, so then you just basically go through your deck, try to find these to gain life, and then just try to take extra turns. Or against a deck that has a lot of removal, you'd want to put in Mindslavers, and then you basically Mindslaver your opponent after like having a creature out or something. Use all the removal they have on their own creatures, and then you pass it back to them. And so there's definitely some fun ways you can do it that is kind of not Tron. I don't know, like it's one of those things where I found that I really liked Tron and like the idea of like this land searching and, mixing that with artifacts. Just for me, it seems like the synergy of it is just more fun. I mean, it's one of those combos where it's turn 3, turn 4, and then you try to win. But there's so many cards that can just destroy you. Like right now, the card that this deck is weakest to is Swords to Plowshares. I mean, there are times where I'm like, you'll drop out like a 10-10 or like a 5-5, like a huge like hanger back, or you drop out like a Colossus or something, and then your opponent's like, Swords to Plowshares? And you're like, you don't get the Thopters anymore, and like that's gone, and you can't bring it back to your hand because one of the other effects of Metalwork Colossus is you can sacrifice 2 artifacts that are on the board, and then you can add it back to your hand. So like artifacts like this, when they leave the field generically, you'll actually, I think, draw a card. So I think it's Chrome Star. No, there's another one. Yeah, so there's like Terrarion, and I think another one is like when it's just put into the graveyard, you draw a card. There's a couple of those, and one of the other cards I was messing around with was Felgry Familiar, because one of the things you could do is if you got Tron on, and this is just like funny other cards that I would love to used to have in the deck but don't anymore. You would turn 3, if you had Tron, you have 7 mana. So what you could do is play 4 for Queer RA, and then tap 3 to do a Felgry Familiar to gain some life. And then, obviously, yeah, it's just fun. It's just fun. Felgry Familiar was like another fun way to do it. But personally, I've just loved playing, I'm like bumping the camera, but I've just loved playing this kind of synergistic artifact deck. And I think personally it's a lot of fun. I mean, I know there's a lot of players that do Tron and they're like, this Tron deck is trash because you're using those. But for me, like, it's like, yes, like at the end of this, where I want this deck to be is I want to have, 4 copies of Explore and 4 copies of Ancient Stirrings. I want to take out, I think the Terrarions or the Prophetic Prisms, some of the Terrarions, and then organize out some of the extra lands and stuff like that. Just to, for colors and all that. And then I really just want to have a top end like this. And then maybe, do the sideboard as like, literally like have like 2 Worm Coil engines, have like 1 Karn, 1 Ugin, like just like little kind of random, really cool stuff to just sideboard and just have fun. And so I think this will be kind of my official modern deck, is just Tron with a fun artifact sideboard, where I just try to change the deck with the sideboard rather than sideboarding against. And oh yeah, so this is the other land. This is the other land I really like. Inventor's Fair. Now, the other thing that I would need for the combo to actually work, like for the extra turn combo, if you're interested in the extra turn combo, I do have it fully made online, but I just don't like it because, I mean, 1, it's not interactive, and 2, normal Tron is better and faster. So it's basically like a cheaper, not as good version of Tron that doesn't interact with people. So it's kind of but it basically just annoys people. You basically use Gonti's Ether Heart with Inventor's Fair. You take out the Hangerback Walkers and you put in a handful more. You take these out, put the stars back in, and then you take out the Explorers for Ancient Stirrings. And then that should be right about there. You keep these as well, and then you're on your road. That's pretty much it. I mean, you literally just take a couple cards out, The other fun side of this is, if you're a person that wants to do an artifact combo deck, I would really recommend doing this. Like, literally just have Tron set up with normal stuff. And this is just because I'm using the colorless. And then for me, you literally just have some of the land searching, have some of the generic 1-drop, draw an extra cards. You don't have to have Lotus Bloom. It's just there to help the deck keep going through land hate. And then, just little things like that. And literally just have a top end of, 8 or so really big artifacts. Because a deck like this, the synergy of Tron actually really just works super well for artifacts. Because literally, like, to actually find the lands, you have these artifacts and then these, like, 1-drops for consistency. And then you can literally choose to have, like, these. And I was actually doing, like, a Panharmonicon build as well, where it would, like, the Panharmonicon build was hilarious because there were times where you would just go off completely. I don't know, but there's so many fun things you can do. I just wanted to say that, really put that out there. There are so many builds of this I've messed with, like Panharmonicon builds. I've messed with, the Gonti Ether Heart to take extra turns. I put, Inventor's Fairs in to see how that goes with consistency. And then, Ether Flux Reservoir too. There's ways you can build it completely around Ether Flux. Honestly, that's what I'm thinking about doing, turning this entire deck into an Ether Flux deck, just 4 Ether Flux, and then take out everything that's up there, and then put in some the 0 cost artifacts, the Darksteel Ingot, I think it's called. Life. There's so many things. I just want to put all those ideas out there and just really say Tron is just a fun build around, guys. I mean, I think people should totally do it. I don't get why. Well, okay, I understand why people hate it, but like, this is fun. This is fun. And plus, like, the look on someone's face when you, like, go off with Tron and then you drop a Metalwork Colossus and they're just like, what? Like, it's just so worth it. It's so worth it. So, hope you guys enjoy. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. And this is my Tron deck right now. I will be finding these. This is a legit, I can play this deck. Yep. Life.